Sat Shri Akal. Good evening, everybody. Dear friends, on behalf of the High Commissioner of India in Canberra and the Consulate General of India in Perth, I would like to welcome each one of you to this reception hosted by our new High Commissioner, His Excellency Shri Gopal Bagle, in honor of our dear External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. Subramanian Jaishankar. It's an absolute privilege to have a High Commissioner. This is his very first month as he joined as the new High Commissioner for India in Australia, and also to have our Minister here joining us in Perth. I am Dr. Pavinder Kaur. I am an Associate Professor of Biotechnology at the University of Western Australia, and it's an absolute honor to be your MC for this reception today. So before we proceed, may I please request you to follow some guidelines to ensure that we have a smooth and successful program, and we all could listen intently to our Honorable Minister and the High Commissioner. I would please request you to remain seated in your respective seats throughout the program. Please switch off your mobiles or put them on silent if you've got them handy. And some housekeeping rules. In case of an emergency, please follow the instructions and exit the auditorium in orderly manner through the exit doors on your left and right. The toilets are on the ground floor, and if you need to use them, you may do so now before the commencement of this program. And the program will be commencing very shortly. The Minister will be here, and then we can get started with the evening. In the meantime, we will be joining you in a little while. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your patience. Good evening, everybody. Namaskar, salam, sat shri akal, and a very, very warm welcome to our dear Minister of External Affairs, Dr. Subramaniam Jayashankar ji, our High Commissioner Gopal, His Excellency Gopal Bagle ji, and our Consulate General and many dignitaries who are gracing this evening today. It is an absolute pleasure to have all of you with us today. My name is Parvinder Kaur. I'm an associate professor at the University of Western Australia, specializing in the field of biotechnology, and it's a privilege to be able to welcome all of you today here. I will be your MC for the evening, and may I please request all of you kindly and welcome Honorable Minister, and we start with our national anthems. So may I please request everybody to stand on their positions so that we can start the event formally with the national anthems. Thank you. may I please request you to be kindly seated on your chairs? Last 2 days, we've had the pleasure to host over 400 delegates from the Indian Ocean for a conference, the 7th Indian Ocean Conference here in Perth. It was an absolutely inspiring moment for being an Indian heritage scientist in here to welcome all these dignitaries here from so many countries, from over 17 countries. And what we were exploring was looking at how can we strengthen the partnerships in this region. And what it came down to were two very basic things, which was a partnership can be only constructed when there is a trust, and trust comes from the values. And if you listen carefully to the two national anthems which just participated in, we have a very, very nice understanding and shared values between the two regions of India, our country India, and the country we call home now, Australia. So it's an absolute privilege to be able to see that we are going to base these amazing partnerships in the coming years, strengthening this region and reconstructing this entire phase. So moving to the first cultural performance, I would like to invite proceedings invoking the blessings of Lord Sri Ganesh, Ms. Sindhumita Chauhan of Mahari School of Odissi, who will perform Mangala Charanam through Odissi classical dance, which is a dance of love and passion, touching on the divine and the human. Please welcome Sindhumita Chauhan. Thank you. We need a bigger round of applause for our Mahari School of Odyssey plays. And next I would like to invite our dance artist from Tarana School of Kathak Dance to present Ma Durga Stuti, titled Jai Bhagavad Devi, which will be presented through Kathak classical dance, and vocal and composition is attributed to legendary Pandit Birju Maharaj. The dance item has been choreographed by Mrs. Sumita Datta and performed by our very young and talented dancers. Please welcome them on the stage. Well done, girls. That was a fantastic performance. Honourable Minister, we might be short on the numbers as compared to the other states of Australia, but we have an amazing talent here in those small numbers. And with that, with not any further ado, I would like to invite our High Commissioner of India to Australia, His Excellency Shri Gopal Bagleji, to deliver his welcome remarks. We would also extend a very warm welcome to you, sir, for joining this new assignment and for your first visit to Perth. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kaur, for your warm welcome. भारत के माननीय विदेश मंत्री, honorable parliamentarians, the senior officials from Australia and India, my colleagues from the High Commission and the Consulate General here in Perth, देवियों और सज्जनों, भाइयों और बहनों, आप सबको मेरा बहुत बहुत नमस्कार, प्रणाम। A very good afternoon to all of you. मैं भारत में उत्तर प्रदेश से हूँ तो बीच बीच में हिंदी, बीच बीच में अंग्रेजी ऐसे बोलता हूँ, अगर आपकी अनुमति हो तो। If you permit. और जहाँ तक स्वागत आपने मेरा किया है और मुझे आपका स्वागत करना है, तो स्वागत दिल से होता है, उसमें भाषा का कोई खास महत्व है नहीं। इसलिए this is not only my duty, but a great privilege for me personally, and I am sure I share this with my colleagues. A great privilege and honor to be here in the company of and with the External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. Jayashankar. Please welcome him with a big round of applause. Thank you. धन्यवाद। बहुत कम ऐसा होता है कि आने के एक महीने के अंदर भारत के राजदूत को भारत के विदेश मंत्री का स्वागत करने का मौका मिले। सर, आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जो आपने मुझको और मेरे सहयोगियों को ये सौभाग्य प्रदान किया। मुझे मालूम है आप पर्थ के बारे में, आपकी यात्रा के बारे में और आपकी पिछली यात्राओं के बारे में आप बोलना चाहेंगे, तो उस तरफ ना जाते हुए मैं सिर्फ ये दो शब्द कहना चाहता हूँ that we are really very touched. Western Australia is not just warm weather, but it has given us a very warm welcome. And Dr. Kaur mentioned to you the occasion, but it has really been an experience for us, for me and my colleagues who have come from Canberra. I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the colleagues that have come from India also, to witness the warmth with which we have been welcomed here. And thank you very much, especially for making it possible to be here and having your company here, especially considering it's a weekend, it's a Saturday. So we are even more grateful to you. We are all waiting to hear the Honorable External Affairs Minister of India, who does not need any introduction. भारत के विदेश मंत्री डॉक्टर जयशंकर जी को किसी परिचय की ज़रूरत नहीं है, लेकिन फिर भी सर अगर आप अनुमति दें तो मैं दो शब्द कहना चाहूँगा, परिचय के लिए नहीं, लेकिन व्यक्तिगत रूप से जो मेरा अनुभव रहा है उसको 2 मिनट में प्रस्तुत करना चाहूँगा। I would like to share on the basis of my own experience a couple of aspects that I have personally seen firsthand as a career diplomat working under Dr. Jaishankar. Actually, if I may say so, sir, strategic thinking is perhaps in your genes. His illustrious father, Thiru K. Subramaniam ji, I'm sure most of you would know, is the doyen of strategic thinking in India. वो भारत में स्ट्रेटजी और स्ट्रेटेजिक थिंकिंग के भीष्म पिता माने जाते हैं. यही नहीं, तिरु सुब्रमण्यम जी ने भारत की रणनीति, भारत की सामरिक नीति, भारत के डिफेंस, रक्षा, सुरक्षा में जो योगदान किया और भारत की नीतियों को शेप करने में उन्होंने जो भूमिका निभाई, उसने भारत को सशक्त और समर्थ और सुरक्षित बनाया है, साथ ही सम्मान और समानता भी दी है. तो ऐसे यशस्वी पिता के पुत्र ने अगर भारत को एक प्रखर आवाज और एक प्रभावशाली पहचान दी है तो क्या ताज्जुब. What I am saying is that if the son of such an acknowledged expert has given India an effective voice and a new identity on the global stage, then I don't think we can be surprised. I would just say that in the past decade or so, the changes which have come in Indian diplomacy are many. In the presence of Dr. Jaishankar, I don't think any of us is qualified to speak on that. But just two things I would say, from my, again, personal experience. The people have been the front and the center of Indian diplomacy. भारत की विदेश नीति के केंद्र में आए, और वो चाहे भारतीय हो चाहे भारतवंशी हो, whether it is the people in India or the people of Indian origin, they have been in the center, front and center of India's diplomacy, of India's foreign policy. And which is why we pay so much attention to our relations with the people abroad. And the second aspect is, of course, what means is India's interest. So the economic diplomacy has taken center stage, and this is where, again, the importance of Western Australia is self-evident. So with these words, I would say that I should not take up any more of your time, but I would let you have the privilege of hearing from Dr. Jaishankar himself, his thoughts on various aspects of perhaps relations with India, what is happening in India, and how does he see the relations that are evolving between India and Australia, the Indian community, and of course, what is transforming in India. May we welcome Dr. Jaishankar to this stage for addressing us with a big round of applause.
High Commissioner Gopal Bagle, Consul General Amarjit Takiji, parliamentarians, dear friends, brothers and sisters. आप सबको मेरा नमस्कार. It's a great pleasure to be with you at what I have learned in the last day is Australia's Indian Ocean capital, the city of Perth. You, of course, know, or if you don't, I'd be happy to tell you why I am here. I'm here for an Indian Ocean conference which started yesterday. It took place today. And it's really, I think, very important that such a conference should be taking place in Australia, that too in Western Australia, and that too in Perth. And it's important because what it has done in many ways is it has focused the attention of the entire Indian Ocean region on the partnership with Australia, and in turn it has actually given a certain perspective in Australia towards the Indian Ocean. Now, while I have come here for the conference, I must tell you, I think you would be aware, I have been Foreign Minister for 5 years, and this is my 5th visit to Australia as Foreign Minister. So, on an average of 1 visit a year, I don't know how many other foreign ministers in the world can say that. Now, I say this to you because it is actually reflective of this great change that is taking place in front of your eyes in our relationship. And this change started 10 years ago, a decade ago, when Narendra Modi became Prime Minister of India. And he personally initiated an outreach to Australia. At that time, Tony Abbott was the Prime Minister here. And in those 10 years, if you've seen, Modi ji has been Prime Minister for 2 terms so far. And on both terms, he has been here. So I know what is going through your mind. You're asking, so you should be preparing for a 3rd visit. Yes, that's a good point. We said to Perth. But I do want to say, if you look at the change in the last decade, we've had every Prime Minister of Australia since 2014 has met with Modi ji. The current Prime Minister, Mr. Albanese, and Modi ji actually have had 7 meetings to date. And I just cite that to you as an example of really this new energy, this new interest which has come into our foreign policy. And I contrast it in a way to how it used to be, that it was sometimes rare in one generation to see a high-level visit. It took us 20 years after independence to have the first prime ministerial visit to Australia. So the first message I bring to you today is the relationship is doing great. There's an enormous commitment from India, starting with the Prime Minister, to build on this partnership. And it is something which we regard today. Yesterday when I addressed the Indian Ocean Conference, I said I regard this as the most consequential relationship we have in the Indian Ocean. And that is why I am here, and that is why it is very likely, if all goes well, that you will keep seeing me coming to Australia. Now, I spoke to you about how the political exchanges at the leadership level have grown. But you take any other way of measuring. Look at the trade today. Our trade with Australia is upwards of $20 billion, growing steadily. The hectare that we have concluded is really giving it a boost. We are confident that there will be a follow-up agreement to that. So certainly, if one looks at the trade and investment side today, again, there is that sense that this is a relationship which is very much on the rise. Or look as a community at the community itself. Look at the growth in the community. Look at the fact today that there are so many more of you in so many different professions. And it is manifesting itself in different ways. We have just recently, when Prime Minister was here, we announced a new consulate in Brisbane. Australia has opened one in Bengaluru, and I expect more of this to unfold as the community grows. Or if I were to look in terms of defense and security, because for any country that is something very important, that today we and the Australian Defence Forces work very closely as partners. We do exercises together, we allow deployments in each other's countries, we provide great support to each other. So this is today very much a relationship that is growing, that is deepening, that is getting new content, new substance, and a higher profile with I would say every passing month, every passing year. And it isn't only in Australia. Today, this is a very different India that we are talking about. This India is also developing a global footprint. And that footprint has actually brought us much deeper into this broader region itself. So if one looks at Fiji, or you look at Papua New Guinea, in fact look at all the Pacific islands which are close to Australia, there is again today an Indian presence, an Indian project, an Indian contribution, an Indian collaboration in some form. And last year when we had a meeting of Pacific Islands, Prime Minister Modi committed that in key areas like health and education and space, we will be doing very much more with the Pacific Islands. And I mentioned that to you because when we do more in this larger region, that also contributes, that is part of our partnership with Australia as well. So I can very confidently predict to you that a country which today is such a strong partner of Australia, where other than Prime Minister, Foreign Ministers, our Defence Ministers meet regularly, in pretty much every domain today that level of contact is growing. But having said that, I know, to the Indian community, your minds are always focused on how India is doing, what is happening in the country. And I would like to share some thoughts and experiences there as well. 10 years ago, as a country, we made a very big decision. And that decision led to Narendra Modi becoming the Prime Minister of India. At that time, he had been for about a decade and a half a very, very successful Chief Minister. But from being a Chief Minister to a Prime Minister, in many ways, the country took him on trust. The country expressed a hope, that they hoped that everything that he had done in his own state, the changes he had made, the governance, the good governance he had brought, that he would be able to take it to a national level and take the country to a very, very different place. 10 years have passed. We are again, of course, as you all know, poised to make another decision again. But I want you to reflect on these 10 years, because many of you would go to India. It's possible some of you may not have had the opportunity, or if you go to India also, you may go to your hometown or go to one city in India, may not have the chance, as many of us who live in India do, of traveling with you. But I ask you to think back in 2014. Suppose I was standing before you in 2014 and I told you that, you know what, we have just elected a Prime Minister whose administration and governance would see that this country, India, is in a position to regularly feed a population the entire size of Europe and North America, which is able to give free healthcare to more people than who live in Europe, which is able to give houses to people larger than the population of Japan, which is able to free women from firewood in their kitchens and give them gas cylinders, which is more than the population of Germany, which will give loans to people, small people who would normally never get those loans from banks, to allow them to stand on their own feet, and this would be larger than the population of South Africa. I think you people would not have believed it. And yet, that is exactly what has happened in the last 10 years. Now, as a foreign minister, this is a subject to which I keep coming back to. I keep coming back to because there is huge interest in the world. And you would all see this in Australia. That I am sure in the last 10 years, if each one of you thinks about your workplace, your friends, your social circle, you would see in that a very different level of interest about what is happening in India. So, I get asked this question. So tell us very briefly, well, give us some sense of what has happened. I had this conversation recently, just last week, with some very senior British politicians who are visiting. Or a few days before that, on 26 January, I was with President Macron of France as the minister who was traveling with him. So I had to think, how do I give them some data point which is immediately like bingo, they get it. So I said, just think about it, last 10 years. In these 10 years, we have built 8 new airports every year. Okay, so people start thinking. We have every 2 years, 3 cities have got metros. Every day, 30 kilometers of national highways are being built. And for the last 10 years, every day, I repeat, every day, 2 new colleges are being opened. So when you tell people, and then I told them what I told you before, that a country which is today in a position to provide nutrition to 2/3 of its population, which provides health care, because these are problems everybody in the world has. The most developed country in the world has people who are left behind and who struggle really to make sure that at the end of the day they don't go to sleep with empty stomachs. So if we in India, and all of you know the challenges which India has been through, that if we in India are able to solve the problems of hunger, solve the problem of health, our expectation is, just as we speak, every house has electricity connection. Every house has piped water. When you think about piped water, it is not just water that you get. There are huge health consequences, health benefits to getting piped water. So if you look at the enormity of this change, it is today really a country that has much to be proud of, much to be thankful for, but whose expectations and aspirations are growing, that today people feel if we can do so much, there is that much more ahead of us. And that is why, after a 10-year foundation today, we are talking of 25 years of Amrit Kaal. That we believe that the next 25 years will profoundly transform India, and by 2047, it would be realistic for India to aim to be a developed country. Now, I have spoken to you in a way, I've tried really through some numbers, through some comparison, to give you this change which has happened. But I also want to talk to you and remind you of the challenges which happened in this period. Because remember, in these 10 years, especially these last 5 years, 2.5 years went to COVID. Now, how we faced COVID, how we came through COVID, that itself is something which actually we should reflect on, and the world actually admires. That a country, when COVID started, I've related the story before, actually the G20 leaders met as a group virtually, and I was sitting behind the Prime Minister at that time. And one of the biggest worries in the world when the briefing was done was, how will India cope with COVID? The feeling was India didn't have the health facilities, India didn't have the production, the medicines, the basics, the masks, the ventilators, the PPEs to deal with COVID. We started the COVID as the country of worry, and we concluded the COVID as the country of contribution. That the same India not only looked after its 1.4 billion people, got them all vaccinated, but was actually able to make sure that 100 odd countries in the world got vaccines, and many of them got vaccines only because of us. So, and if you remember that COVID period, one part of it was the health. The other part was also, so many of us, so many of you had the challenge of travel. There were people in India who had to go out. There were people abroad who wanted to come back. Many people went out for work. There were a lot of students. Across the world, dormitories, hostels started closing, and people said, please go back to the country you came from. During that COVID period, we brought back 7 million people back to India. And the scale of that operation. And I mentioned this to you because, in a way, see, all of us have this sense, government, sarkar, pata nahi kaise kaam karte hain. There is a certain impression about systems and government. But what happens when you get a leader, when you get a vision, when you get a motivator? I can tell you, as a person who's worked his entire life in the government, almost, it's a very different situation. People worked from home during COVID. We worked 3 shifts a day from office, every day. And we could do this because we were motivated. There was a drive, there was a sense that, look, we have to find under this Prime Minister a solution, a way forward, and we cannot let down our people. So that today, that sense that we have a community abroad, that there are 3.5 crore people who are of Indian origin, हमारे समुदाय के हैं या हमारे मूल के हैं, and that sense of responsibility and care and that empathy for the Indian community, that has been another big hallmark of this decade. And you can see this in different ways, that, and very practical ways, because again, in many countries, you can have grand visions and big statements. One very important difference in India is the biggest vision has become the smallest detail. How do you actually do things on the ground? You can say, we will fight COVID. You can even produce the vaccines. But how do you create a system to vaccinate? Similarly, we say, okay, there are 33, 34 million Indians and people of Indian origin living abroad. How do you actually set the systems in place? And many people are today, what are the 2 most common problems? And I'm sure some of you at least at some point would have experienced it. You lose your passport. Okay. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it would have taken 2 weeks in a good case for you to get some kind of replacement document. Today, because we are digital, there is a database. you would probably get it the same day or the next day. You can see the difference. I mean, I say this as someone who's worked in 8 embassies. I can see the difference in my own embassies. That the sense of service, that the feeling that today we are there actually for the community, that has changed. But not everybody is fortunate. Often people lose money. Sometimes they are in difficulties and they don't have the resources. You know, again, one of the interesting reforms which Prime Minister pushed us to do. One, of course, he started something with, I don't know if any of you have used it, perhaps some of you have, an online portal. If you have a problem, it is called Madad. You have a grievance, send us your problem, and you will get an answer, and you will get a status of where it is. But the other is more practical, that create a fund, find ways by which people, there may be someone who's lost everything, someone who doesn't have resources. Sometimes people pass away, an accident happens. That if one looks at it, in the last 10 years, 3.5 lakh people have actually availed of this fund, and almost, I would say, more than 600 crores has been spent helping community members in need across the world. So, if I were today really to give you a sense, one part is what have been the achievements, but the other part is you look at a challenge like COVID, or you look at actually what is happening on the National Security Fund, that we have in this period gone through a very difficult situation with China. And while COVID was on, actually the Indian military deployed in a very, very difficult border in very large numbers to deal with what was a new challenge. Or if I were to talk in terms of a really big decision, which everybody in the country today recognizes was so critical, but we should wonder why it took us so long, which was the abrogation of Article 370. That we had the clarity, the courage, in our hearts and in our minds, all of us knew it was the right thing to do. But you needed a leader who said, yes, I will do it. So it could be China, it could be 370, it could be COVID. And sometimes, this is a tough world. All countries are subjected to pressure. We came under pressure during the Ukraine conflict. Or, when with Australia we started the Quad, we restarted the Quad. We came under pressure also not to do it. How do you stand up against pressure? This also is, I would say, a characteristic of the change that we are seeing. And sometimes it can actually be a big responsibility. It looks like sometimes like a program, but it's very complicated. And the example I would give you, because that has really kept me occupied over the last year, was how we conducted the G20. That when we took over the G20, countries of the West had problems with Russia. We had developing countries who felt that nobody was listening to their concerns. So we actually had to take charge of the most important grouping of the world at a time when actually it was very divided. And frankly, very few people expected us to put everything together and find a common ground. So it is this India today, an India which can carry other countries, which in the eyes of the world, people look at us today. They look at the achievements, the digital achievements of India, the health achievements of India, the better governance practices, the infrastructure of India. Anybody who comes after a gap of 5 years to India actually marvels at what has happened in the last 5 years. So I want all of you today to understand really the transformation which is happening, to appreciate that good governance, great vision, strong leadership, is leading the country on the right path. And the mood, I must tell you today, in the country is very, very optimistic. There is a sense today that it is very much within our capabilities to rise to the challenge, to do things. So let me conclude, because I would be happy to have an interaction. I know there must be some concerns or even good advice which some of you would like to give. I'd be happy to listen. But I want to say two things which to conclude my talk. One, that there's just been a poll, a foreign policy poll done in India. And Australia ranks among the 3 most trusted partners of India. So I think the Australian-Indian community should appreciate it. And my last point is, I have traveled maybe to more than 100 countries in the world. I have never seen a community center like this. So I compliment all of you. Even as I came in, I asked the High Commissioner, I said, look, what is this building? How did it come about? So I think it's a tremendous achievement of the community. I hope you serve as an example to many others, both in Australia and outside. So once again, really thank you. It's a great pleasure to be with you. And I'd be very, as I said, happy to hear you, to respond in any way. So I think I should stay here. Oh. Okay. Shall I take the mic? Shall I take the mic?
Thank you very much. Once again, may I request a big round of applause. So, as the Minister has suggested, questions or advice, but my request is, yes, we'll come to you, sir. Please reach the mic here. Please keep your question very brief, introduce yourself, and we will perhaps be in a position to take maybe 2 or 3 questions. Here, second row. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, and very good afternoon to you, and welcome to Perth, Honourable Minister. My name is Paritosh Mishra, and I'm the Vice President of Australia-India Business Council WA chapter, and also part of a Japanese organization called Fujifilm for the last 18 years. Pleased to share that we've just started operations in India, and which is expanding at a very fast pace. So my questions to you is, you just said that you learned that Perth is now the capital of Indian Ocean, and you would have also heard that there is a strong debate going on to start a direct flight between Perth, Chennai and Perth, Delhi. So having said that, we have taken it for granted that the direct flight would certainly start. My question is, if this is what's happening with Perth, why can't we have Perth as the India hub of Australia before it becomes an Asian hub of Australia?
Believe me, given the effort it took me to come here, I'm a great supporter of direct flight. So I know this is a long-standing demand in the community. I certainly will go and add my voice to it. But seriously, what is happening in India right now is the airlines, as you know, are all in the private sector. But the aviation is doing very well in India. In fact, if you look today, this shift today from what used to be the fragile 5 to the 5th largest economy in the world, it's reflected today in a range of activities, one of which is that there's booming tourism, there's booming air traffic, and there are very large orders placed on the manufacturers of airplanes for fleet expansion. So I imagine, as a common sense proposition, that as those planes come in, the airlines would start flying out. And my broad understanding is this is a sector which has always been regarded, India, Australia, as a very good sector to operate. But the one promise I can make to you is when I happen to meet any of those airlines, I will tell them why it is important to come into Perth. But on Perth itself, when I look ahead, see, we missed in a way the manufacturing bus in the 1990s and the early 2000s. We reformed the economy, but we didn't push it, exploit its full potential, certainly in the case of manufacturing. Today, there is a new set of industries which are coming into being. You can see it, say, in electric mobility. You can see it in smart manufacturing of different kinds. You can see it in digital, in green hydrogen, green shipping. So, I would say the world is becoming greener, cleaner, smarter, and the businesses will have to change accordingly. A country like India has the opportunity today to leapfrog. That if we actually center it around what is our strongest asset, which is our people, that if we can actually, the talent of the people can be harnessed by this cleaner, greener, smarter businesses, I think we would have actually taken a huge jump. And here, most of all, this is where actually a partnership with Australia will be very, very critical. And the more the partnership grows, because you are the part of Australia which is physically closest to India. So I can tell you, we are the 5th largest economy today. In another 3 years, we probably will be the 3rd largest economy and keep growing. So I actually see that unfolding, and I think part of that unfolding will impact very much on the role of Perth and the relationship with Perth.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Yeah, myself Jaishankar, and without introducing much, but I am proud Gujarati to say that one representative is managing the internal affairs and one representative is managing the external affairs of the India. So thank you very much.
And one is managing all of them.
No, that I don't know to talk. My main question actually, we came to know, and definitely India, we are a little bit more interested in the politics and political affairs. But here I have seen that it is very, very less media coverage about what is happening between India and Australia. Now you said that we have a 7 visit between 2 prime ministers. Probably so many people are not aware. So what do you think, how important it is to make community or other Australian community aware about what's going on between India and Australia, so that the acceptance will become very smoother for transition from the better relation in the future?
Whenever Modi ji travels abroad, उनकी एक आग्रह होती है, it's a request he has to the community, and on his behalf I make the request to all of you as well. His request is that each one of you try to get 5 friends, local friends, to visit India. But I will add a second request. I would say really, because I accept what you are saying, I would say if we want to change that, it's important each one of you in your workplace, in your social circle, in your community, actually discuss India, make people aware. Because see, you have credibility. Anything you say to people would be naturally taken by them, because there's an underlying friendship and a comfort which flows from that friendship. So when we talk of the community as ambassadors, we really mean it, that wherever I have seen a big change in the image of India, I can tell you that it is because in many ways of the contribution of the community. Because in that country, in that society, when they think of India, they don't think of a place on the map of the world. When they think of India, they think of a friend, they think of a co-worker, they think of their doctor, or they think of their tax specialist, or whoever. There is a face, and there is an experience which they associate with India. And that is today really this image today. I hear this, look, in many parts of the world, there is a big debate going on about immigration, about people who have come more recently. That debate is never directed at us, because we are seen as responsible, we are seen as family-centric, we are seen as contributing. This is really what is spreading the image of India in the world, and I think in many ways it is, all of you have it in your power really today to make that difference.
Yes, the lady here, I think this should be the last question, sir.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Dr. Jayashankar, it's been a pleasure to hear you live. I'm Dr. Sadhana Bose, and I'm actually the medical lead for Twinning Hospitals Collaboration, which is a partnership between the Western Australian Health Government here with the government back in India, specifically the state of Uttar Pradesh. So you're right, we all are ambassadors, and it's a privilege for me to be that health ambassador. My question to you, sir, is about, it was great to hear about all the progress we've been making. And you are right, Bharat is in a position to actually carry the weight of many other countries on its shoulders. But where are we with real progress in finding that place, getting that seat at the United Nations Security Council? Because that is very important if we are truly to be a Vishwaguru.
We will get there. I'm 100% certain we will get there. But I will also tell you this honestly, we will not get there easily. We will not get there easily because world is competitive. There will be those who will try to block us, who will make that passage difficult, who will put some kind of obstacle, some kind of argument in the way. But why I'm confident we will get there, and I'm more confident today than I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago, is I see the change, I see how differently today the world looks at us. That if we go, I go around the world, often I hear this from people saying, look, you can say things we can't say. Or we trust you to say this, we have our own constraints. Or people who feel we have already just naturally, put across a position which is a collective position for all of them. And very often, these are issues where the interests of many are involved, but the global debate is dominated by a few. So, it could be today about energy prices. It could be, a lot of countries have a debt situation today. It could be even about culture and heritage. That, everybody doesn't want to be overwhelmed by other people's culture. So, that sense today that India is trusted, India is well regarded, a lot of people want to see us. And it's a very interesting thing. In the UN, actually every year in different bodies of the UN, there are elections. You'll be surprised how many elections there are. Even I don't remember the number, but I can tell you it's at least in double digits. If you look, India is one of those countries which consistently does well in those elections. We often do better in those elections than the 5 who are already in the Security Council. So that should tell us something, that we enjoy in that sense the trust and confidence of the world. But again, as I said, look, we have this period, this 25 years is a very vital period for us. We have laid the foundation for that takeoff in these 25 years. And that 25 years will of course be years of transformation in India, but it will also change India's position in the world. That if you look at the businesses of future, these are businesses which will need Indians. If you look today, where are the talent, where are the demographics, where is the knowledge? A lot of it points towards India. We will be a much bigger economy, we will be a much bigger influence in the world. So our time is coming, but we have to work for it. We have to make sure at home we get everything right, that the path we have followed, we now need to sort of accelerate that and go forward. And I'm sure as that takes place, we will get there.
Thank you, sir. Please join me, ladies and gentlemen, in giving big thanks and showing our appreciation to Dr. Jaishankar. Very quickly, may I invite the Consul General of India, Mr. Jayashankar, for a quick word of thanks.
Kaya, good evening and namaste. Honorable Minister of External Affairs Dr. Jayashankar, Secretary Ministry of External Affairs Shri Saurabh Kumar, High Commissioner of India to Australia Mr. Gopal Bagle, our newest senator in Federal Parliament Mr. Varun Ghosh, dear Dr. Jagdish Krishnan, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to propose the vote of thanks after an enthralling and inspirational session with our esteemed External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar. I am sure that all of you must have felt as proud listening to him as we did. As always, it was an absolute honor and enlightenment listening to his perspective on complex geopolitical challenges and effects of transformational development taking place in Bharat. Sir, we are immensely proud and highly motivated with your thoughts. Sir, the entire community is delighted and privileged to have you in our midst in this Indian Ocean capital of Australia. The last time the External Affairs Minister of India had visited Perth was in 2013. On behalf of everyone present here, I would like to thank you for joining the community today and gracing this occasion. Sir, over 100,000 strong Indian community has made significant contributions to the Western Australia's multicultural society and economy. Members of Indian economy are contributing their ideas and work ethics in all fields, including in legislative assembly, city councils, universities, and higher education institutions, and many other fields. The diversity of India's culture and tradition is well represented and celebrated here in Western Australia. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Indian diaspora for joining us today in welcoming our Honorable Minister of External Affairs. I would also like to thank once again this opportunity to welcome Honorable High Commissioner Shri Gopal Bagle to Western Australia and thank him for hosting this evening. We all, as a community here, look forward to working with you to translate your vision of strengthening the India-Australia relationship. I would also like to thank the artists of Mahari School of Odissi and Tarana School of Kathak Dance for their beautiful cultural performances, and all members of the Indian diaspora, not only for their presence, but also for their overwhelming support in making this evening a memorable one. I thank ISWA as also all community associations for their support to the event. Thank you. Namaste.